I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
And as usual, good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever it is you happen to be geographically this wonderful day. It's 1:30, just about in the afternoon in scenic Indianapolis, Indiana, and it is a gorgeous middle 70s degree, bright, sunny, beautiful autumn day here, just about a week out from Halloween. And oh my goodness, is it ever wonderful. We're not always blessed with this kind of weather in the late autumn, and I am exceptionally grateful for this day. It's just beautiful. The leaves are turning, and I just got done cutting the grass for the last time this year. Yay! You know, it's just been great. Had a fun weekend with the kids. I'm excited to be here, and as you all kind of overheard because you couldn't help it, Derek and I are working on helping another couple of individuals to receive Tao initiation and perhaps become the owner of a shrine, which is extremely exciting news. Yeah, every time that happens, it just makes my heart overjoyed. Do we have somebody online on the phone? I'm picking up a little static or something. Is the audio okay, Derek? Can you hear?
It sounds wonderfully clear to me, Bill.
Okay, good. In that case, I'll ignore whatever's coming through on my end, but I thought I should ask. Sorry about that. Anyway, moving on. I don't know when exactly I'm going to tie up this series of talks on the practice of Taiji Chuan and the Tao. This is such a rich and fertile bed of material for the Tao discussions that this may go on for a while. And I ran into something a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to chat about, because when I read this quote, and this quote is, well, it was translated and published in 1932 by Chen Yin Wen, but the teaching itself is actually much older. There's a paragraph that you see here in the classics of Taiji Chuan that well, let me read for you, and that'll be as much of an explanation initially as we need. It says, Taiji Chuan bases itself exclusively on gentleness, softness, naturalness, and bringing you back to your original nature. Daily training makes the muscles and bones become softer and more pliable, and it especially causes the breath to become natural. These are the results of disciplining and refining the Qing, the Qi, and the Xian to the end of your days. How then can you consider dispensing with your Gong or wish to suffer bitterly? When I read this for the first time, the first thought that struck my mind was how closely paralleled with the teachings of the Yuan Dao the first couple of sentences in this paragraph are. And I find these sorts of coincidental writings and teachings all the time in the classics of both the Tao studies and Taiji Chuan. You know, the Dao De Jing is what we might consider our major canon of scripture, but there are many other writings on the disciplines of Tao cultivation and Taiji Chuan both. And so I quote the teachings of Zhan Songfeng pretty frequently. Obviously, we utilize Lao Tzu very heavily here, but there are many others in the disciplines of Taiji Chuan in particular We talk about a lot of people from the Yang family, which is far and away the most popular style of Taiji Chuan in practice on the earth today. There are several others, the Qian, Zhou, Wu, those schools, among others. But Yang is the best known, and there have been literally volumes written on the practice of this style of Taiji Chuan. Fortunately, most of those transition pretty seamlessly from one style to the other. So the joke for the day is this: how many Taiji masters does it take to change a light bulb? Well, it takes 100. One to change the light bulb and 99 to say, but in our style, we do it this way. Ta-da! Hopefully Sifu Ed will get a kick out of that one. But here's the thing. I've spent an entire lifetime involved in some kind of martial sciences practice. And I started with what was available to me when I was very young, which was Korean karate, what we know in the West here as Taekwondo, or some of the hybridized and amalgamated Japanese styles, some of the Shorin karate styles. There's one in the Midwest that has grown up because they kind of got here first, which is Shori Goju-Ryu. It's a combination of a couple of styles from Okinawa, not really important for this discussion. But not a lot of the Chinese arts or philosophies had made it to the Midwest when I started this search. And in point of fact, the Japanese styles were tough to find. I did an awful lot of training in an awful lot of basements and ad hoc gyms and places where space was carved out wherever we could find a spare corner to practice, because that's what was available at the time. Amongst all of those original practices is the commonality that they were all external. And by external, I mean that they're based on the development of hard, strong, rigid, forceful bodies and techniques. They are meant to use force to overcome force. That's just how it works. That is the philosophy behind the practices. It is the nature of the practice itself, and it is the utilization of the practice. Taiji Chuan is an internal art. And so, in its practice, instead of developing this hardness and toughness and rigidity, we develop the attributes of gentleness, softness, and naturalness. Okay? The difference between the internal and the external is absolutely a reflection of the difference in the manner in which people of different cultures deal with conflict and develop the skills they use to deal with it. It is the reflection of how people think, how they act, and why they act that way. Know that the internal practices heal the body, strengthen the mind, and cultivate the spirit, and all three of those things have to progress along essentially the same lines. If they don't, the training's deficient. And to make sure that it does, in my school anyway, I adjust the pace of the training for individuals so that one kind of keeps up with the other, so that the body develops as the mind gains the ability to understand and comprehend, and as the spirit develops that gentleness and kindness that prevents people from taking some really dangerous technique out on the street and using it. And the internal arts do not rely on the use of force to overcome force. The hardest thing, perhaps, to help a beginning student get over when they first begin to learn the martial aspects of Taiji Chuan is that there is far more power generated in relaxation and redirection than one ever generates in tension and striking and force. It takes a little time for one usually to get their head around that. So kind of keep that thought in mind for just a moment, and we'll move on to the next slide here. Once again, the first couple of lines of that paragraph. Taiji Chuan bases itself exclusively on gentleness, softness, naturalness, and bringing you back to your original nature. Okay? This philosophy of Taiji Chuan from Zhang Kong is exactly the same philosophy that we embrace in Dao cultivation. It is. Everything that we do, everything that we learn, everything that we talk about here on Sundays is to help the individual Dao cultivator return to that natural state. And that natural state is there to permit the Buddha nature to emerge, to help to awaken the mind and the spirit to a better set of answers, a better way of doing things, and to allow that better set of answers to come forth into this earth. Remember that Lao Tzu says that returning is the movement of the Tao. Yet for some reason, for most people, it is so easy to imagine breaking stuff and hurting people, and so doggone tough to imagine healing others and repairing and fixing that which is broken. When people come into my school for the first couple of times, almost without fail, the first question I hear is, can you break boards and bricks? Well, yes, I can break boards and bricks. But I've never been attacked by a board or a brick. I teach just enough breaking to help the students focus their concentration and get their body alignment right. But I don't focus an entire discipline on breaking. In Japan, the discipline of tamashawari is dedicated to breaking stuff that is never going to hit you first, unless somebody throws it at you. But when I begin to speak about repairing the body, fixing the mind, healing the spirit, helping people to find that gentle goodness that exists in all of us, they tend to look at me like I have three heads. Now, from a little personal note here, you all may or may not have known that 3 years ago I had my third heart attack, and as a result I now have an arrhythmia that is an abnormal heart rhythm that the doctors cannot manage. They're not able to fix it. And so if I'm not careful, I now have a premature heartbeat that makes it very nearly impossible for me to breathe or do anything else. Over the course of the last 3 years, because I really do not like to be debilitated, I have spent a lot of time rebuilding my strength, my stamina, my endurance, my fighting skills, my ability to do my Taiji forms and to keep up with this. And it's not been particularly easy, nor has it been particularly fun. I'm still not up to getting through even 100 koshos and the rituals yet. My body can't do it yet. However, this last weekend, for the first time in 3 years, I cut my yard and my neighbor's yard and got through the weed eating and managed to do it all in less than 2 days. And I was phenomenally proud of myself for being able to do that, because this time 6 months ago, I couldn't cut my own yard. I had to make my son do it. The process of healing my body has been challenging, but definitely worth pursuing. Pursuing Tao cultivation and the practice of Taiji Chuan is the same process. Okay, we're not all fixing a broken body. but we're all fixing something. We are all attempting to get back to a condition that we were in that was in some way, physically, spiritually, mentally better, more natural, more in keeping with the Tao itself. It's an intangible, almost ethereal thing that we know exists, but we can't always put our finger on. And that is why I talk about the parallels between the practices of Taiji Chuan and the practices of Tao cultivation. And as I go through these talks and try and pass this knowledge on, the question that has plagued me from day one is, why is suffering so doggone attractive to people? Why is it so easy, so simple to ask me to break something or destroy something or hurt somebody, and so doggone difficult to look for a way to end suffering and pain? So I'm going to share a couple of truths with you, and these are absolute truths. These are based on years of practice and experience and observation, and they are the truth. And in fact, one of my very finest fighters managed to do this morning. I was so proud of him, I couldn't hardly stand myself. One cannot achieve Taiji, the supreme or ultimate state. And in this case, this is in the context of the practice of Taiji Chuan. If one is focused on force and violence, cannot be done. That focus precludes the ability to achieve Taiji. Okay? Because the focus of the mind is wrong. The Shin is moving with the wrong intent. One cannot cultivate Taiji, the supreme or ultimate extent, until one understands the concept of the Tao of heaven. The way I put that in the website for the school is that there is no Taiji without the Tao. You know, Taiji Chuan was originally divined and practiced at the Wudang Mountain Temple. It's a Taoist temple. One would expect for the spirituality and the martial practice to be heavily intertwined, and they are. But it's never fails to amuse me at how many people try to disentangle the two. They want the martial training without the spiritual knowledge, and that just doesn't work. The interesting thing that occurs is that once one understands the Tao of heaven, one cannot cultivate a spirit of violence and force. And when that happens, and only when that happens, then one can attain Taiji, the supreme or ultimate state. That happened for David Cross this morning. And it always happens by accident. I got a text message that said he'd just driven back in from Chicago. He was completely exhausted, absolutely fried, and went to his morning jiu-jitsu practice anyway. And in preparing for his practice, he found Taiji. He touched the edge of the universe. For those of you who have actually experienced what I'm talking about, it is the coolest thing ever. For me, when it happened the first time, I said that it was a state of complete and utter bliss where nothing hurt and I could see everything. David's expression was a little different, but about the same. And it really is cool. This is the reason that we practice. Not to go break some brick or rock or something or to hurt somebody, but to condition and discipline the mind and the spirit for this experience, for this knowledge, for understanding the Tao. Lao Tzu said that a violent person cannot have a natural death, and I will use this as the foundation of all teaching. That's a good thought to keep in mind. This is why the ancient masters did not practice the martial disciplines with the intent to cause harm. It's one thing to prepare for war, it's another thing to go start one. And so we don't want to embrace that mindset of force and of violence. Our purpose as we practice the Tao Te Chings should be, or at least I guess at a minimum should include, bringing about an end of suffering on the earth. We ought to fully embrace and take advantage of every opportunity we receive to end suffering, no matter how insignificant or small that opportunity may appear to be. It's so doggone easy to imagine, learning how to beat somebody senseless. It should be equally as easy to imagine and think about not beating someone senseless, about extending the hand of assistance and help. And if we can turn our attention to ending suffering instead of the needs of self-preservation and violence, then perhaps we can bring the use of force to a state of significant reduction, and we won't have to find a reason to use it. I used to say that there were times when I absolutely could see myself injuring or killing another person. I've said that in this very forum. It's been some years ago, but I have said it. If I caught somebody breaking into my house in one of my kids' rooms or something, they'd be dead before they hit the floor. I should never have said those things, although they reflected my beliefs at the time. But the simple truth, once you understand, really understand, is that there's never a reason to do that to somebody. And if I wind up in a situation where that becomes necessary, I really didn't manage something right to begin with. So, the second question I ponder is it weakness to look for reasons not to fight? There are those who believe that to be the case, but I'm here to assure you it is not. It isn't that I'm unable to defend myself, it's that I no longer possess a desire to do so, and in fact actively seek to never have to do that. It never ceases to amaze me that the philosophy of Taiji Chuan and the Yuan Dao come out so closely aligned. But those synergies, those coincidences, those alignments are part of the things that assure me that the path that I'm going down here is the correct path for me to follow and the right things for me to teach. Okay? Practicing peace, however, does not mean becoming a doormat, nor does it mean exercising complete passivity to the exclusion of maintaining one's integrity, moral compass, or belief systems and values. Yang Ban Ho and other members of the Yang family, as well as several of the folks I've trained with, have always said, practice your Taiji Chuan with the martial applications in mind. Understand how to use what you learn. Understand it thoroughly. Practice it diligently. Okay? But once again, there's a big difference between preparing for a war and starting one. Okay? Understanding the use of force does not have to imply a desire or intent to use it. Just as a personal note here, fighting should always be avoided, and not just physical conflict, but arguing, debating, deriding, belittling, bullying, the whole bit. Okay? Those things do not do anything to further the cause of humanity. All they do is create ill will, bad feelings, and poor relationships between people. It's in our best interest to always seek an end to conflict and to suffering. Thank you guys awful much for letting me share with you this morning. And I sure hope something I said was useful to someone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Bill, as you know, in chapter 80, we're describing a place and people whose attitude is very similar to what you described, in that the people in this ideal place described by Lao Tzu are they know how to handle themselves in a fight, and yet they live completely in peace. From what you are describing, it seems to me that's the way you live as well. You want to be ready for conflict, and you live for never having to be in conflict. Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位顶传十一鞠躬，斜班一鞠躬。We're done, everybody. Thank you so much.